It was one of those calm, golden Saturday mornings when my wife, Dana, laced up her running shoes and headed out for her usual 6 a.m. jog. The neighborhood was quiet, birds, sprinklers, and the distant hum of early risers washing cars. We'd moved here 2 years ago for peace and privacy, not realizing the HOA had recently started something they proudly called the Neighborhood Protection Program. It sounded harmless enough until that morning. As Dana jogged past the community entrance, a black SUV with magnetic HOA security decals screeched to a stop in front of her. 2 men jumped out wearing tactical vests, cargo pants, and mirrored sunglasses. They looked more like wannabe SWAT officers than neighbors. One barked, "Ma'am, we need to see your resident ID." The other rested his hand on what looked alarmingly like a handgun holstered at his hip. Dana slowed, confused but composed. "Resident ID? I live here," she said evenly. She pointed down the street toward her house. The taller man flashed a laminated badge that looked like it came from a Halloween store. "We've had reports of trespassers and joggers from outside the neighborhood," he said. "We're just keeping everyone safe by pulling over residents on public sidewalks." Dana asked. Her tone was calm, but her eyes tracked every motion, his stance, grip, and finger placement. Years of training elite military operatives had hardwired her instincts. She immediately noted how sloppy and dangerous his posture was. Then, things escalated. When Dana tried to continue jogging, one of them stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, don't move," he ordered, his voice cracking slightly. The shorter one's hand moved toward his gun. Dana froze, not out of fear, but out of restraint. She could have had that weapon disarmed and both men face down in the grass before either process would happen. But she also knew any sudden motion could give them an excuse to act stupid. "Sir," she said, voice level, "you're making a mistake." The man smirked. "You can tell it to the HOA board. We've got authority here." He started to draw his weapon. Not fully, just enough to intimidate. That was his second mistake. Dana's training kicked in automatically. Her breathing slowed. Shoulders dropped. Every nerve in her body aligned for precision. She didn't flinch or shout, just watched, memorizing every move. He thought he was in control. He had no idea the woman standing before him trained special operations soldiers for a living. At that exact moment, her smartwatch buzzed, a location alert she'd preset in case of emergencies. It sent her coordinates straight to me. Because if those men didn't back off, I was coming, and things were about to change fast. I was in the back lot mending a section of our fence when my phone buzzed. It was Dana. Her voice was steady, but I caught the edge beneath it. "Hey, hun," she said. "Your HOA cops just pulled a gun on me." For a split second, I thought she was joking. Then I heard the faint sound of male voices barking orders in the background. My chest tightened. I dropped the tools and sprinted toward the truck. By the time I reached the neighborhood gate, the scene looked unreal. 2 middle-aged men in cheap tactical vests squaring off with my wife. One of them still had his hand hovering near his gun, like he was in an action movie. Dana stood tall, calm, and unshaken, her expression almost analytical. She didn't look scared. She looked like a teacher watching her students fail a test. I jumped out and started recording. "Which department are you with?" I asked. The taller one shot back. "We're HOA security. Authorized by the board." "Authorized to do what exactly?" "Draw weapons on residents." I asked. That's when the shorter man realized his mistake. His voice cracked as he tried to explain something about neighborhood enforcement rights. Dana just raised an eyebrow and said quietly, "You're holding that sidearm all wrong. You know that's unsafe, right?" They both froze. For the first time, they realized she wasn't intimidated. She was evaluating them. I called the sheriff's department immediately, giving them our exact location. The dispatcher's tone changed when I mentioned armed civilians impersonating security. As we waited, the 2 men tried to justify themselves, spouting nonsense about HOA bylaws and citizen patrol rights. Dana simply folded her arms and smiled faintly. "You should probably put that gun away," she said, "before you hurt yourself." They didn't know it yet, but real law enforcement was already on the way, and their authority was about to vanish in flashing blue lights. Within minutes, the faint wail of sirens echoed down the main road. The two HOA officers stiffened, exchanging a nervous glance. Dana didn't move. She just kept her hands visible and her stance relaxed, the way she'd taught countless soldiers to stand when waiting for backup. A county sheriff's cruiser rolled up, followed by another. The deputies stepped out cautiously, hands near their holsters but calm and professional. One look at the situation, and their expression said it all. This wasn't law enforcement. It was cosplay with consequences. "Sir, ma'am, please step back," the lead deputy said, approaching the two men. "Who are you with?" "We're HOA security," the taller man blurted out. "We're authorized to maintain order and enforce community safety protocols." The deputy frowned. "Authorized by who?" "The HOA board," he said, holding up his cheap badge like it meant something. The deputy took it, turned it over, and then smirked. "This is a laminated printout. You're not law enforcement. And you're carrying a firearm?" The second deputy removed the weapon from the man's holster while the first disarmed his partner. Dana stepped forward, holding her phone. "Here's video of them drawing on me," she said, her tone neutral but authoritative. "And my credentials." She handed over her Department of Defense instructor ID. The deputy's demeanor shifted immediately. Respect replaced skepticism. "You train special operations?" one asked quietly. Dana nodded once. "Yes. And these two amateurs nearly shot me because I didn't look like I belonged." The sheriff's deputy turned to the pair. "You're lucky she didn't take that gun from you and use it to teach you a lesson. Impersonating an officer is a felony. So is brandishing a weapon." The HOA men started to stammer excuses about community service and misunderstandings. The deputy didn't buy it. "No," he said firmly. "This is dangerous stupidity. And it stops right now." As the two men were led away for questioning, Dana stood silent, arms crossed, watching. Calm. Controlled. The same composure she taught others under pressure. They tried to intimidate the wrong person, and now the real law was showing them exactly what authority really looked like. The aftermath was swift and ugly for the HOA. Word spread fast once the sheriff's office released its report. 2 board members arrested for impersonating security officers and illegal possession of firearms. It turned out the HOA had been funding their neighborhood protection program with community dues, buying tactical vests, radios, and fake IDs online. The rest of the board scrambled to distance themselves, but it was too late. The entire operation collapsed overnight. A week later, Dana and I attended an emergency HOA meeting. The room was packed, neighbors furious, whispering about how the board had endangered residents. When the acting president tried to shift blame onto the rogue volunteers, Dana stood up. Calm, poised, and direct. "Security isn't about fear," she said. "It's about discipline, awareness, and respect. What happened wasn't safety, it was ego. And someone could have died because of it." The room fell silent. Even the sheriff's liaison attending the meeting nodded in agreement. By the end of the week, the board president had resigned, and the HOA voted to permanently ban any private patrols without county oversight. A few days later, Dana got a call from the sheriff himself. They offered her a consulting role to help train deputies in tactical awareness and de-escalation, poetic justice, really. Now, months later, our neighborhood is quieter than it's ever been. The fake badges are gone, the SUV sits collecting dust in an impound lot, and those 2 officers keep their heads down whenever they drive past our street. Sometimes, Dana still jokes, "If they'd asked nicely, I could have trained them for real." I just smile and shake my head. Because the truth is simple. They thought they were in charge. But that day, they learned what real authority looks like.